Creating one cube is kind of cool, but what about creating 100 cubes? What about 1,000? Try doing that in the Unity editor just using your mouse. Ouch. Stuff like that is better done with code. Let's try it. Okay, back in the Unity editor, go ahead and create a new script called MiniObjectMaker. Okay, go ahead and open that up. Just like last time, let's add 2 lines of code to create an object using a reference. Now, let's write some code to create a long line of 1,000 cubes. First of all, comment out the line that starts with object.instantiate. This way, we can reference the code for later, but Unity will ignore the line. Let's talk about comments for a second. Comments are a great way to write programming notes to yourself and others. And, in this case, they're also a very useful way to keep code around so that we can reference it later. Okay, let's go back to the code. Below the comment, add the following lines. This is called a for loop. You'll see them all the time in programming. Loops are a big part of programming, and this is just one kind of loop. So what does a for loop do? Well, this loop executes a set of instructions 1,000 times. And how do I know that? Well, let's talk a bit more about for loops. So here's a for loop that looks very similar to the one we just wrote. When Unity hits this very first line, it creates a variable called I, and it sets its value to 0. Right after that, it checks to see if I is less than 1,000. Since it is, because I equals to 0, Unity executes the command between the braces. In this case, we mark that with doStuff. When Unity hits the closing brace, it jumps back to the top, and it adds 1 to I. That's what the plus plus means here. So, now I holds a value of 1. Right after that, Unity checks again to see if I is less than 1,000. And it is, because I is equal to 1. So we execute the same code again. So doStuff happens again. Now this goes on and on and on until I is equal to 1,000. And at that point, Unity exits the loop because I is 1,000 and 1,000 is not less than 1,000. So the next thing that it executes is the line labeled finished. Okay, so a for loop is really just a very succinct way to tell Unity to do something a bunch of times. All right, let's go back to the code. Let's add some new code below the doStuff comment. This line looks almost exactly like the last instantiate command, doesn't it? Notice we're just changing the location where the object will be created. We're setting the x-coordinate to I. And remember that I goes from 0 to 1,000 because of the for loop. Okay, save the script and go back to Unity. Just like last time, let's create a new empty game object. Let's call it MyMiniObjectMaker. Let's drag our script onto it. Let's go up and create a new cube and drag our cube into the object to create slot. And now press play. Voila! You just created 1,000 cubes in an instant. That's a lot of cubes. At this point, take some time to play with the loop. Can you make the cubes be stacked on top of each other instead of laying side by side? Can you make X, Y, and Z change at the same time? Have fun. Loops are an incredibly powerful programming tool.